exchange, to have a dialogue.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. We'll start with a check of the top headlines this hour. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party wins a landslide parliamentary election, securing a resounding mandate in a pivotal vote, the first since the 2024 Gen Z-driven uprising that toppled longtime Premier Sheikh Hasina. The United States and Taiwan finalize a trade deal. The agreement lowers the general tariff on Taiwanese goods from 20% to 15%, the same level as Asian trade partners South Korea and Japan, in exchange for Taipei agreeing to buy about $85 billion of US energy, aircraft and equipment. Japanese authorities seize a Chinese fishing boat and arrests its skipper in a move likely to further heighten tension with Beijing. According to a statement from Tokyo's fisheries agency, the vessel's captain was ordered to stop, but the vessel failed to comply and fled. North Korea threatens a terrible response if it detects any more drones buzzing across the border from the south. This comes as the nation claims it shot down a surveillance drone last month, an incident which threatens to blight South Korea's efforts to patch things up. Venezuela postpones the adoption of a landmark amnesty bill designed to end the use of courts to crack down on dissent after failing to reach an agreement on how to apply it. Meanwhile, thousands of opposition supporters poured into the streets of Caracas to demand the release of all remaining political prisoners. US President Donald Trump threatens Iran with very traumatic consequences if Tehran fails to make a deal on its nuclear program, adding that he hopes for a result within the next month. US President Donald Trump revokes a landmark scientific finding that underpins US regulations aimed at curbing planet-warming pollution, marking the administration's most far-reaching rollback of climate policy to date. NASA is set to launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station, replacing a crew that was evacuated early due to a medical issue. The US Space Agency is targeting February 13 for the liftoff of Crew 12's mission aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, with a window opening at 5:55 a.m. local time. All right, viewers, let's now focus on news from Bangladesh, where the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, led by Tariq Rahman, has claimed victory in the nation's first election following the overthrow of Sheikh Hasina's regime. With 185 seats secured in the 299-member Jatiya Sangsad, the BNP is confident of winning a 2/3 majority. Along with its allies, it has secured 211 seats. This election is considered Bangladesh's first free and fair poll in over 17 years, following years of allegations of vote rigging under Hasina's rule. The voter turnout reached 60.69%, and for the first time, overseas Bangladeshis were allowed to vote. The BNP's victory comes after a student-led uprising that toppled Hasina's autocratic regime. However, the Awami League, which was barred from contesting, has denounced the process as illegal and unconstitutional. Shoaib Chaudhry, editor at The Blitz, joins us in this conversation from Dhaka. Shoaib, thanks very much for joining us. Khaleda Zia is no more, but she'd be very happy with the results of the polls for her party. What's next now for Tariq Rahman? Is he the prime ministerial face next for Bangladesh?
Thank you very much, Kirti. Bangladesh has got relief from the 18-month unelected regime, which has destroyed our country's economy and destroyed the law and order situation and everything. Now, yesterday, Bangladesh won. It's not BNP. And with the victory of BNP, it's a landslide victory. I do believe that BNP will restore the law and order. BNP will do the needful things for recovering the economy. And most importantly, BNP will take urgent steps in restoring, repairing our relations with India and come out of the jihadist Islamist trips, which have, as I said, destroyed my country's economy and every other thing.
Shoaib, how would you react to the allegations that Awami League, which was the party ruling for 17 years, wasn't even allowed to contest, and in that event, BNP winning, what does it really mean for the party?
Awami League, as you mentioned, that it was in power for from 2009 to 2024 August. During this whole 10 years, Awami League has actually adopted a policy of brutal dictatorship, and it stopped BNP from participating in the election. It continued a cruel repression on BNP. So Awami League was not barred from politics by BNP. Awami League has been barred from politics by Yunus regime. Now for Awami League, why they did not join the election? Awami League, I mean, its organizational condition in this country at this moment is almost fragile. I mean, they don't have any existence in this country at all because all the leaders are in exile in other countries. So for Awami League now, they have to first of all prepare, and they have to also admit the blunders they committed during their tenure, and then only there will be an atmosphere where Awami League can return. But as you know now, Awami League has rejected the election result. I mean, this is not, again, a good sign of good politics. Jamaat has also indicated this last night that they may even refrain from joining the parliament. So, I mean, altogether, Awami League should not follow the Jamaat's footprint. Awami League should now come up with a proactive approach. But most importantly, we don't see any leader of Awami League in the scene. I mean, who is leading Awami League? Sheikh Hasina is not there, and it's a very scattered leadership. So Sheikh Hasina should decide first of all and name a person who will represent her country. And definitely, it is not her son because he does not understand the sentiment of the people of India.
All right, sure. Shoaib, to continue to stay on with me, let's give our viewers some more details that we are picking up. Viewers, the BNP chief, Tariq Rahman, has outlined his party's plans after securing a 2/3 majority in Bangladesh's recent election. Rahman, who is poised to become the next prime minister, promises significant reforms in several key areas. His campaign focused on women's empowerment, including free education up to post-graduation and the introduction of a family card for women. He also pledged to boost the economy through tax exemptions for small industries and to protect minorities with strict laws. Additionally, Rahman emphasized the importance of clean politics and tackling corruption, promising administrative reforms and a balanced foreign policy. Shoaib requested to join us back and do comment if a BNP will actually be able to deliver on the tall promises it's made.
For to implement the policies or the pledges of Tariq Rahman, the first and foremost priority is to de-radicalize Bangladesh, because radical elements are very much on the move everywhere around. So Bangladesh has to be liberated from the evil clutches of these Islamist and religious figures. This is the first thing. And then Tariq Rahman will have to create an atmosphere where foreign investment can flow in again, begin to flow, and the local entrepreneurs get the confidence. But of course, it's a very good sign that Jamaat lost. Otherwise, if Jamaat won, God forbid, yesterday's election, from this morning, Bangladesh would have stepped towards the path of a caliphate. So Bangladesh has been saved and our voters, the people of Bangladesh, they have voted. It is a mass revolt against the Islamization and Caliphitization of Bangladesh.
All right, Shoaib, once again, do continue to stay on. Now, international reactions are coming in, viewers, for the Bangladesh election results. The United States has officially congratulated successful conduct of the vote and expressed its eagerness to work with Bangladesh on shared goals of prosperity and security. The BNP, contesting its first major election since political upheaval in 2024, claimed a majority of parliamentary seats and is set to form the next government. Shoaib is there with us. Shoaib, what kind of relations can we expect ahead of Bangladesh and the US with the BNP in power?
First of all, as I would like to again say that this is an elected government coming to power after 18 months of anarchy, and any elected government, they will have to do the right thing. And US has always been a developing partner of Bangladesh. I do hope, but America should not behave like a master that they have been for the last 18 months. And we know, everyone knows that America and Britain, they were desperately trying to see Jamaat to become the winning party, but their heart is broken, of course. But hopefully America gets into realization. And for Bangladesh and the BNP and Tariq Rahman, it is a matter that any country that's looking for relations with Bangladesh should come from a mutual respect. But at the same time, US should understand that the agreement they have been desperately signing with the help of their puppet regime in Dhaka, they should step back from these things. Yeah. They should not do anything that goes against the interest of the people of Bangladesh.
Would Bangladesh then be inching closer to China? How is it going to balance between the US and China, both of whom are looking for investments in Bangladesh?
Again, very simple reply, because for Bangladesh, the best policy is to not to enter into the pocket of any country. Bangladesh will maintain its neutral position and continue cooperation with India, with China, with US, everything. But most importantly, please remember that India is our unavoidable neighbor. We must have the best relations with India, because without having good relations and best relations with India, Bangladesh cannot prosper.
Sure. And how is the BNP going to work with India as also with Pakistan? That's going to be a difficult task to strike a balance with both these countries with opposing ideas.
BNP was in power in 1991. BNP was in power in 2001.
Yeah.
And BNP had excellent relations with India.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned about Pakistan, what we have with Pakistan, Pakistan can only give us destruction. Pakistan can only export the terrorism in this country. We don't need any special relations with Pakistan. Pakistan should be now set aside from, and they should be barred from meddling into internal affairs of Bangladesh, because Pakistan actually is not a real friend of the people of Bangladesh. That is the only country which is the enemy of the 180 million Bengalis.
All right, Shoaib, thanks then very much for joining me. It was a pleasure to speak with you. And viewers, we now move ahead. Now, US President Donald Trump has confirmed he will travel to China in April for a high-level meeting with President Xi Jinping. Trump highlighted the strong state of US-China relations, calling their relationship very good right now. This visit follows a recent phone call between the two leaders focusing on trade matters. Trump reciprocated Xi's invitation to visit China, and both presidents are looking forward to strengthening their ties. Trump also shared that Xi will visit the US later this year. Joining me now in this discussion is Dr. Astha Chadda. She is Associate Professor of International Relations at Rissumeikan University in Kyoto. Dr. Chadda, thanks very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you. How are you seeing the latest comment coming in from Trump? Clearly, visible shift in stance as far as China is concerned for the US. It's no more even recognizing it as its number one enemy. Quite to the contrary, relations are very good, is the statement that's come in. What has triggered this change in stance, in your opinion?
I mean, you put it very rightly that there is this sudden shift under the current administration in the United States. But I mean, we can just look at it as one more development that continues to happen under this current American administration, where they're trying to, in some way, relabel a lot of their relationships with strategic rivals as well as strategic partners. And we seem to be seeing a lot of shift in the dynamics with these countries. Now, specifically with regard to China, there seems to be a lot of alacrity in the current administration to once again engage in high-stakes diplomatic and economic recalibration. Now, what that means is that US is trying to once again, I would say, rebalance its economic relationship. It does not mean that the current administration is going to do away with the idea of China as the strategic rival to United States or the second largest economy that could, in fact, threaten US hegemony. On the contrary, what I look at it as US trying to find opportunities to continue with engage on China on the economic front while continuing to maintain its very rivalry sort of dynamic with China on the strategic and military front. With regard to President Trump's visit to China, I am thinking that probably, since they already mentioned it's going to be focused on economic relationships, they would want a lot of commitments from China, specifically from President Xi Jinping, regarding the import of US products, regarding, recalibrating probably some of their energy exports as well. And probably, there might be some discussion on how to take this economic relationship forward in a way that it does not hurt the US market.
Right, sure. What do you think are going to be the key talking points now when the two leaders meet, especially at a time when Trump has really picked up a sort of Cold War with its Western European allies?
I mean, I would be a little bit skeptical about saying if US does actually look at Europe as, as a rival or as a problem at the point when probably there's a kind of a cold stance in that relationship for a short while, but it's very unlikely that US is going to completely throw away all of its alliances that it has built in the past, even if it is under the current administration. But definitely with regard to the key talking points, I mean, there are four main things that I think would probably be important to be discussed if President Trump, wants to then secure a very favorable trade deal with China. And, one of those is, of course, going to be trade, specifically with regards to US agricultural products. And we've been seeing how US has been pushing these massive agricultural purchases from a lot of its partners, trading partners and economic partners. So it looks like this again could be, on the agenda this time. The second thing, under the current administration in the United States needs to be, or seems to be, the need to ask states to commit to energy purchases. And in case of a lot of, Russia-friendly countries, they seem to be wanting to ask these countries to slightly wean away from their dependence on Russian imports of energy and move them more towards US oil and gas. So this could also be one of those, discussion points or talking points. And third, we know that China has been a very important player, and it is undeniable that China continues to maintain a very important position when it comes to war-related discussions, specifically with regard to peace talks. And there is a possibility that, how to maintain peace and stability in the wider Indo-Pacific could be on the agenda, not just Indo-Pacific, probably Atlantic Indo-Pacific, and I'm specifically talking about the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the military posturing in that region as well, apart from military posturing in the South China Sea. And, there's also a possibility that they might try to ease movement of people, across borders between US and China, whether it's through enabling some sort of an easy visa, probably for tourism or for business executives. But those seem to be the key talking points on which both states are likely to have, some interest there on which they would want to agree.
Dr. Chadha, let's also talk about what does it really mean for the world if two superpowers come together?
I mean, we've spent a long time looking at US and China in a very rivalrous relationship and looking at it as this or that, very binary sort of vision of the global order. But, again, is this something new? I mean, US and China have for the longest time been engaged in an economic relationship, which is that of interdependence, and so have the other powers in the region as well. I mean, whether you talk about Japan, you talk about India, they might have had their problems with this relationship or in certain aspects of the relationship, but they've also been very closely tied to China. So can China be entirely left out of the supply chain dynamic? It's very difficult. And I think most states are waking up to this reality that there can no longer be the possibility of a complete overhaul of the system or completely, plugging China out. Rather, there seems to be this new reality where they need to rebalance their economic relationship. They need to renegotiate terms in order to maintain a functional economy, whereas the other ideas of security can then go in parallel. So I see more of this, shift away from this duality face of relationship between US and China. What that means for the region is probably if these two powers can commit to maintaining stability rather than hurting the global order, this could definitely bring about some, I would say, security in the system, at least in the short run, wherein states would no longer have to be, worrying about this potential conflict flaring up anytime, whether it's in the East China Sea or South China Sea. There could be some balancing there. However, a lot depends on the terms of these deals that US and China are able to strike with each other, whether it's during President Trump's visit to China or the reciprocal visit of President Xi Jinping to the US. It largely depends on what terms they want to negotiate.
All right. Thanks for your comments there. Stay on with me, Dr. Chadha. Viewers, there is some breaking news coming in now. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also congratulated Tariq Rahman for his decisive victory in Bangladesh's parliamentary elections. Modi praised the results as a sign of the trust the people of Bangladesh have in Rahman's leadership. India reaffirmed its continued support for a democratic, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh. Modi also expressed his eagerness to strengthen bilateral ties and work together on common development goals. And now moving on, viewers, US President Donald Trump's administration officials have signed a final reciprocal trade agreement that has confirmed 15% US tariff rate for imports from Taiwan, while committing Taiwan to a schedule for eliminating or lowering tariffs on nearly all US goods. The document released by US Trade Representative's office also commits Taiwan to significantly boost purchases of US goods from 2025 through 29, including $44.4 billion of liquefied natural gas and crude oil, $15.2 billion of civil aircraft and engines, $25.2 billion of power grid equipment and generators, marine and steel making equipment. The agreement adds technical language and specific details to a trade framework deal first reached in January that cut tariffs on Taiwanese goods, including from its powerhouse semiconductor industries, to 15% from the 20% initially imposed by Trump. That puts Taiwan on an equal footing with its closest Asian export competitor, South Korea and Japan. Dr. Chadha continues to stay with me. Dr. Chadha, just as we give our viewers the news of US and China holding this meeting, now US is also striking this deal with Taiwan that China will not really be pleased with. What's your comment?
I mean, see, the US-Taiwan relationship has also been one of the very long-standing relationships. And I mean, for China, a lot of red lines tend to be catering to US military presence in East China Sea, and less about, how much US trades with Taiwan, because that, I mean, even though that all overall, it does seem to be like a red line, but that seems to be like a softer red line than a very hardline red line with regard to US military presence or their military exchanges. But what's very interesting about this deal is that rather than giving Taiwan a strategic edge over other competitors, like you mentioned, South Korea and Japan, it brings Taiwan at par with a 15% tariff rate, of course, decreasing it down from 20%, but it does imply that a lot of concessions need to be made by the Taiwanese in order to bag this deal, which is pretty much they'll have to eliminate and completely reduce almost all of the tariff barriers that they have been putting over the years on US goods. And for me, I mean, if I read through the document and what has been released, it looks like US is set to be ensuring and securing its own economic security, its own semiconductor security, its own AI security. But not enough can be said about Taiwan. I think for Taiwan, the biggest stake here is that a major power and the superpower like United States is willing to commit to this economic relationship in return, meaning that if US continues to have a very close economic relationship with Taiwan, the stakes for US would also be very high if there were to be a conflict in Taiwan. I think on that front, Taiwan seems to have been very interested in this deal because it allows them to have an edge or a leverage.
Right, Dr. Chadha, thanks very much then for joining us and for speaking to us here at Music World. And viewers, with that, let's move on and tell you, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has called the war in Ukraine terrible, highlighting the severe suffering of the people, especially during the coldest time of the year. He emphasized the harsh realities of war and reiterated that the US has been working tirelessly for over a year to end the conflict. Rubio's comments underline the urgent need for peace in the region. Let's listen in.
Terrible. It's a war. That's why we want the war to end. People are suffering. It's the coldest time of year. Unimaginable suffering. That's the problem with wars. That's why wars are bad, and that's why we've worked so hard for over a year now to try to bring this one.
And now moving on, viewers, before we wrap up the bulletin, let's also tell you that German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has emphasized that Europe does not want protectionism but must be able to respond to unfair trade practices. Merz spoke after meeting with other European Union leaders at a medieval castle near Brussels to discuss ways to cut energy costs and strengthen the European Union's border-free internal market. Merz also reaffirmed his opposition to joint European debt issuance, saying he will not support the idea of Euro bonds. The European Commission will present a plan in March to deepen the single market, aiming for European Union leaders to agree on a timetable. Let's hear that statement.
Wir wollen auf unfaire Handelspraktiken reagieren können. Das wird allerdings sorgfältig zu prüfen sein. Wir wollen keinen neuen europäischen Protektionismus, aber wir müssen uns wehren können gegen unfaire Handelspraktiken, etwa wenn mit Überkapazitäten die Märkte geflutet werden. Ich habe heute Morgen sehr deutlich gemacht, dass ich, auch wenn es dazu andere Meinungen gibt, einer Finanzierung von Vorhaben der Europäischen Union über Eurobonds zum Beispiel nicht zustimmen kann. Ich will das nicht, aber selbst wenn ich es wollte, ich könnte es nicht.
And viewers, that's all we have time for. Keep watching Music World for more news updates from around the world.